Hi, my name is Brent Bradshaw and my new company is called NewCo. This week I was required to test NewCo's revenue model by surveying my gurus and customers. Each guru and customer was sent their respective survey via email with appropriate background information and associated expectations. In addition to the survey, I called each of the gurus and customers to discuss their respective results. This proved to be a very informative exercise. From my guru's perspective, all of the gurus believed that NewCo's revenue model was an effective and realistic revenue generation approach based on the company's business model. All gurus were inconsistent with respect to their feelings as to whether or not the buyers or the sellers should be the ones responsible for NewCo's transaction fees. They did all believe that the transaction fee should not be flat and should instead be based on a percentage sliding scale approach that caps out at a certain dollar amount, and that the transaction fee percentage should be set at a rate of 10% or less of the total transaction value. The gurus were unanimous in their belief that companies would be willing to advertise on NewCo and that advertising revenues would represent the greatest revenue generation opportunity for NewCo. They also believed that philanthropic organizations would be willing to engage in sponsorship opportunities on NewCo. Finally, the gurus were not consistent with their belief on big data and whether or not certain companies would be willing to pay for the transaction data collected by NewCo, or whether NewCo users would be concerned with NewCo generating revenue from this area. From my customer perspective, unlike the gurus, the customers were not consistent with respect to whether or not NewCo's business model was effective and realistic with respect to revenue generation. Similar to gurus, they were also inconsistent on their feelings as to whether or not the buyers or the sellers should be responsible for NewCo's transaction fees. They did also believe that the transaction fees should not be flat in nature and instead should be based on a percentage sliding scale approach that caps out at a certain dollar amount, and that the transaction fee should also be at that 10% rate or less of the transaction value. Unlike the gurus, and their belief that advertising revenues would represent the largest revenue source, the customers believed that sponsorship revenue would represent the greatest revenue generation opportunity for NewCo. The customers were unanimous in their belief that NewCo would generate transaction and user data that would be considered valuable customer information and something that certain companies would be willing to pay for. They were also confident that NewCo's users would not be concerned with NewCo generating revenue from big data collected in their respective marketplace. So, what effect does this have on my business model canvas? Based on the results of the surveys and additional comments provided by my gurus and customers, I am recommending a slight tweak to NewCo's revenue model as follows. So my updated model will read as follows. NewCo will generate revenue from the following three revenue streams. Transaction fees. NewCo will charge users a nominal transaction fee which will be based on a percentage sliding scale approach that is set at a rate of 10% or less of the total transaction value and that caps out at a certain dollar amount. Advertising and sponsorship revenue. NewCo will provide companies with the opportunity to advertise their products and services on the website. NewCo will also provide philanthropic organizations with various sponsorship opportunities that will ultimately benefit NewCo's user base. Big data. As the user base and transaction frequency grows, NewCo will work to monetize big data associated with user trade activity on the platform, i.e., subscription to monthly, quarterly, annual reporting, while ensuring that data remains anonymous and not personally identifiable. This was a great week and lots to learn. Thank you.